All right, Melissa, we are at 10:30, approaching 10:31.
This conference will now be recorded.
People coming online. Do you want to start the recording?
Yeah, I think we just did.
You just did. Sorry, we did it. I hit the button right as you started talking, and there was a slight delay. Sorry.
Terrific. Well, then we'll say good morning to those who have joined us so far for our board meeting. And I want to welcome everyone to the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority Board of Trustees. I hope everyone was able to join us using the GoToMeeting instructions that were provided. Just to note, this meeting is going to be recorded and live streamed on our website. First, some ground rules for the meeting. Please mute yourself when you are not speaking so we can reduce background noise. When you're making a motion or comment, please state your name first so that we know who you are. The same goes to the board. It's helpful that you state your name and also the county that you are representing. For those of you logged in through the website or app, please use the chat box to indicate when you'd like to comment or ask a question so that we can minimize the amount of people talking over one another. Melissa, she will be monitoring the chat box and will call on people in the order that the requests come in. After that, we'll ask for any comment from those of you joining us by phone only. Are there any questions about this? I think we're all getting well versed on how to handle these type of virtual meetings. But now to start, I'm going to ask Ted. Beverly could not be here today, so Ted will be reading the Open Public Meetings Act. Good morning, Ted.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. This is to advise that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been forwarded to the Newark Star Ledger, the Asbury Park Press, the Courier News, the Daily Record, the Home News Tribune, the Jersey Journal, and the New Jersey Herald.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Ted, you'll be doing the roll call?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay, want to do the roll call?
Sure, here we go. Bergen County. Essex.
David Antonio, present.
Peter Batsolis is on the line. It looks like we're having some audio issues with him from Bergen County.
You got it. Thank you.
Bergen, present.
Do we have Hudson? I thought I saw Byron on there.
Yeah, Hudson County, Byron Nicholas is present. I'm here.
Thank you, Byron. Hunterdon.
Zach Rich, Hunter County.
Jersey City. Middlesex County.
Charlie Kenny, Middlesex County.
Monmouth.
Terry O'Connor, Monmouth County.
Morris.
Kathy D. Filippo, Morris County.
City of Newark.
Philip Scott, City of Newark.
Ocean County.
Mark Janke, present, non-voting.
Passaic.
John Bartlett, present.
County.
Chris Carney, present.
I think that's Sussex. Somerset.
Sarah Stewie, present.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's see here. Union County.
Betty Jane Kowalski, Union County.
Warren County.
Jason Sarnoski is present.
Governor's Office.
Lauren Nathan LaRusso here. Thank you.
NJDOT.
Michael Russo here.
New Jersey Transit.
Jeremy Colangelo here.
Port Authority.
Jay Sheffield here.
And Citizens Representative.
Jared Rodriguez, present. Thanks.
Thank you, Jared. Commissioner, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. The next thing we'll do is the approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes of March 8th? For the board meeting?
Jay Sheffield here from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Yes.
I want to call attention to the comment by Neil Weissman, as recorded in the minutes, I think may be mischaracterized. My understanding was that Neil was saying that the project would not mitigate potential conflicts as much as it should, but I didn't understand or believe that he meant to say that it will worsen the conflicts as they exist currently.
Does anyone else have a comment about it? Recall it that way? May I have does somebody want to support that change to the minutes? Well, I have to say, staff, this is the first time I've had somebody, I think, bring up a change to the minutes. So do we want to make that correction?
Kathy, there's a comment in the remarks. This is Jason, by Neil Weissman objecting to the change. So
I was going to say, Neil said he stands by them as they are in the minutes.
Okay.
So I make a motion to approve as written.
Thank you. And who was that?
Jason, Warren County.
Thank you, Jason. So
Second,
do I have a second?
Second, Passaic County.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is there anyone who's opposed or wish to abstain? Okay.
This is Jared. Jared Rodriguez. I'll abstain from that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we'll pass the minutes. And now I'd like to take the opportunity to present my report today. And again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I am Kathy DiFilippo, who chairs the board, and I represent Morris County. As many of you have heard, this has been a dynamic time when it comes to federal funding for transportation infrastructure. There are multiple proposals in Washington that call for billions of dollars to be invested in transportation. I'd like to take a moment to discuss the next surface transportation authorization legislation. That's the FAST Act, and it's set to expire at the end of September. And a draft bill for reauthorization is expected soon from the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. This draft is expected to include the reintroduction of member-designated projects, traditionally called earmarks. As part of the submission process for members of Congress, the committee required assurance that projects which are not in the Transportation Improvement Program, or better known as the TIP, could be added to it should they receive funding. I'm pleased to inform you that the NJTPA staff worked diligently with the subregions and congressional staff to review the potential requests and complete 45 letters of support for projects seeking funding, potentially totaling $150 million or more for our region. The letters explained how each project aligns with our long-term range plan and expresses the NJTPA's commitment to include projects that receive funding in the TIP program. The proposed projects include replacements of aging county bridges, safety improvements, road reconstruction, and many bicycle and pedestrian facilities. This process helps to include replacements. Lost the line there. This process helps ensure that federal funding is spent wisely and helps improve transportation in our region. I want to thank the NJTPA staff and the sub-regional staff who worked under tight deadlines to produce these letters late last month. We really did have a very short window, and I admire the consistent work ethic that I have seen with the NJTPA staff and their ability to work with our congressional members and with each of our municipalities to get these projects to the office diligently, on time, and again, quite a few letters that had to be generated. Of course, I'd like to thank our congressional delegation for their ongoing support of federal transportation investment in our region. Let's hope that a number of worthy projects in our region will receive the funding. Next, I'd like to share a few updates about our long-range plan update. That's Plan 2050. The NJTPA on-air Future of Transportation contest, which engaged children in the long-range planning process, concluded last month. Nearly 160 children between the ages of 5 and 15 submitted entries, including drawings, videos, poems, essays, and animations. I was honored to sign the certificates along with Mary Amin, which were sent to the winners and semifinalists. You can read about the winners and view all of their submissions on the NJTPA website. There were some very creative and entertaining ideas raised. Overall, the kids have great hopes for technology and our transportation future. I also wanted to note that, as announced at our joint committee meeting 2 weeks ago, the New Jersey Department of Transportation has submitted the Transportation Capital Program to the NJTPA staff, who then provided pertinent information to the subregions late last month. These projects form the basis for the TIP, which, as you know, allocates some $2 billion annually for transportation projects and programs in our region. It is scheduled for adoption along with our long-range plan and air quality conformity this coming fall. We'll hear more about that later in the meeting. I'd also like to note that many of the investments in the capital program represent the accumulation of planning working initiated by the board and carried out in cooperation with the subregions. We look forward to working with the NJDOT to resolve any issues and complete the TIP development process to make cost-effective use of all available federal funds. Turning to today's agenda, I want to recognize and thank our speaker, John Carnegie, who is the Executive Director of the Alan M. Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University. John is going to talk to us about planning for healthy, just, resilient, and carbon-neutral mobility in New Jersey as part of our ongoing plan for the 2050 Speaker Series. And finally, before I end my remarks, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the pandemic. The state has made great progress in reducing the spread of the virus and distributing vaccines. While I'm optimistic about things starting to feel normal again, I want to note that the NJTPA will continue to work remotely and conduct these meetings virtually for the time being. We're fortunate that the agency can fill all of our obligations, keeping projects and planning studies funded and moving while working remotely. With that, I'll conclude my report and say thank you. I wondered if the DOT has any comments this morning.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I do not.
Thank you. What about NJ Transit? Any remarks this morning?
No comments from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mary, that leads it to you. Would you present your report to the board? Our Executive Director, Mary Amy.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. At our last meeting in March, this board approved the draft of our new Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, the blueprint that will guide our planning work during fiscal year 2022, which begins on July 1. I'm pleased to report today that our federal funding partners at USDOT have now approved this UPWP as well. New initiatives for fiscal 22 include a revalidation of our planning model, an examination of freight rail crossings, and work on a regional active transportation plan, as well as new subregional studies addressing such topics as freight movement and electric charging stations, among others. I am also very pleased to announce that our federal partners have approved our revised Title VI implementation plan adopted by the board last January. This Title VI implementation plan will provide an even stronger foundation for our efforts to ensure that NJTPA's transportation planning and investments meet the needs of all people in the region on a just and equitable basis. As part of such efforts, we recently installed new accessibility features on our website that provide improved language translations, as well as audio, text, visual enhancement, and other assistance for people facing limitations in using standard web browsers. We're also completing work on our current fiscal year 2021 work program. For example, we're concluding a regional accessibility and mobility strategy synthesis study, our transportation demand management and mobility plan, which addresses travel options that are more efficient than single occupant vehicles, is being finalized. Our Planning for Emerging Centers program has 2 projects in their final stages, and there are 5 subregional studies that are wrapping up as well. Also, as the chair mentioned, our ongoing work on the long-range transportation plan is nearing completion. A draft will be available for review by the end of the current fiscal year, with public comments occurring this summer and board action this coming fall. And as always, please refer to the central staff highlights provided to you in advance of today's meeting for more information on these and other efforts. Our close collaboration with partner agencies continues to be a critical factor in successfully carrying out our work, especially in this virtual environment. As the chair noted, we recently received the Transportation Capital Program from NJDOT and are now working with each of the subregions to develop the draft fiscal year 2022 TIP, or Transportation Improvement Program, which will be submitted to the board for approval this fall. In another collaborative effort, staff participated in the State Transportation Innovation Council, or STIC, meeting in late March. These quarterly meetings focus on implementing the Federal Highway Administration's Everyday Counts initiatives, which are innovations directed at improving infrastructure, mobility, and public engagement. The NJTPA staff is pleased to be participating in a new STIC working group devoted to virtual public involvement. Collaboration with the Rutgers Voorhees Transportation Center on Together North Jersey, or TNJ, has also proven to be extremely valuable for our region. I too want to thank today's speaker, John Carnegie, for his ongoing leadership in this groundbreaking work. TNJ's local assistance efforts have helped communities around our region to improve quality of life, economic development, and sustainability. As a result, more walkable and vibrant downtowns are being created in Hackensack, Bound Brook, and the city of Passaic. And the TNJ Institute has delivered numerous seminars and training sessions on vital topics, including healthy communities, brownfields, and parking demand management. The 4 TNJ task forces focusing on the areas of resilience, efficiency, livability, and competitiveness continue their good work and are assisting in updating TNJ plan originally adopted 5 years ago. The NJTPA's support and participation in these task forces have helped to broaden our transportation focus to encompass the arts, education, and land use, and we look forward to this updated TNJ plan. Another source of new ideas and opportunities for our work is the Up Next Young Adult Advisory Group, which provides ongoing and valued input for our long-range plan. At this group's meeting last month, Assemblyman Daniel Benson, chair of the Transportation and Independent Authorities Committee, discussed how transportation legislation is drafted and passed into law. The group expressed keen interest in funding for public transit and transportation improvements and in ways to support cycling and walking. So I'd like to again thank Assemblyman Benson for sharing his time and addressing the group. Planning is underway now for another Up Next event in June. There are two other upcoming NJTPA events that I'm very excited to mention. First, our 7th annual Planning Tools Expo will be held on May 20th, showcasing several innovative planning applications being deployed or under development in our region, including NJ Transit's Land Use and Transit Data Tool, Rutgers University's Flood Mapper Tool, and NJTPA's Engage, our public outreach database. Second, on June 1st, as part of our TPA Tuesdays series, a symposium will be held on connected and automated vehicles, which will explore various transformative connected vehicle technologies that are on the horizon and will assess the region's readiness to support them. Information and registration for both of these events is available on the NJTPA website. And now, since this is the final board meeting of the current fiscal year, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board members and the sub-regional staff for your continuing support in helping the NJTPA to meet its goals. I would also like to acknowledge the NJTPA central staff and thank them for all their hard work and selfless commitment over the past year and longer. Each day, our staff rises to the challenges of working remotely to deliver a high-quality work program that will benefit the people of our region well into the future. I'm very proud of what everyone has accomplished and continues to accomplish by working together despite very difficult circumstances. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Now we're going to move to the committee reports, and I'll call on Commissioner John Bartlett, who is chair of the Project Prioritization Committee, to give his committee report. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am pleased to report on the activities of the Project Prioritization Committee. At the joint committee meeting in April, excuse me, the committee considered 6 action items. First, the committee approved minor amendments to the current Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, to add 3 locally sponsored projects that recently completed the NJTPA's local concept development process. Federal funding for the preliminary engineering, design, right-of-way, and construction phases of work for these projects will come from the NJTPA Future Projects program line. The projects are the Chadwick Beach Island Bridge over Barnegat Bay in Ocean County, which will be supported with $12.4 million in fiscal years 2021 through 2025. The Manhattan Avenue Retaining Wall project in Hudson County, with $51.5 million in fiscal years 2021 to 2028. And the Martin Luther King Avenue Bridge project over the Whippany River in Morris County, with $8.6 million in fiscal years 2021 through 2026. These 3 amendments are listed as action items 1, 2, and 3 on today's agenda. Next, the committee considered 2 sets of modifications to the current TIP at the request of NJ Transit. The first set adds federal discretionary grant funding to 3 programs. $14.7 million to the Bus Support Facilities and Equipment Program to support the Wayne Bus Garage modernization in Passaic County. $24.4 million to the Bus Acquisition Program to support the acquisition of articulated buses to be based in garages serving Bergen, Essex, and Hudson counties, and up to 8 40-foot battery electric buses to expand service in Newark and Irvington. And $4.25 million to the Ferry Program to support the Underwater Hoboken Ferry Project to modernize compromised harbor piles supporting the Hoboken Ferry Terminal in Hudson County. The second set of modifications considered by the committee adds funding to 2 programs. $5.9 million to the Northeast Corridor Improvement Program to maintain state of good repair, increase capacity, and improve efficiency, and $4.8 million to the Hudson, Bergen, and Newark Light Rail systems to support the Hudson, Bergen Light Rail Weehawken Tunnel Repairs Project, or as we call it, where I come from, the Hudson, Bergen, Passaic Light Rail Project. The funding for these programs and projects will be allocated from the Preventive Maintenance Rail Program, the Rail Rolling Stock Procurement Program, and the 3 Transit Enhancement Programs. The committee approved the 2 sets of modifications, and no further action is needed. The last item considered by the committee was approval of projects for the 2020 Transportation Alternatives Set-Aside Program. The July 2020 solicitation for the program yielded 71 eligible applications in the NJTPA region. A technical review committee screened the applications, and 10 projects totaling $8.8 million in Bergen, Essex, Middlesex, Ocean, Passaic, Somerset, and Union counties were selected for implementation. This is listed as action item number 4. Central staff also updated the committee on the progress of the development of the draft fiscal year 2020 TIP. And as Mary mentioned, this development is underway with the subregions reviewing projects in NJDOT's Transportation Capital Program, which was provided to the NJTPA late last month. And that concludes the Project Prioritization Committee report for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bartlett. First here, we'll do the approval of the minor amendment to the fiscal year 2020 to 23 Transportation Improvement Program, or what we refer to as TIP, to add Chadwick Beach Island Bridge over Barnegat Bay Project in Ocean County. For those of you who haven't been following these virtual meetings, in the interest of simplifying our board action for these online meetings, we have asked some board members to be prepared to offer a motion and a second. So I understand on this item that perhaps Middlesex would like to move it.
Yes, Charlie Kenny in Middlesex will move the item.
Thank you. And is there a second from Monmouth County?
Yes, Terry O'Connor, Monmouth County will second.
Thank you. Any comments from the board members? Any comments from members of the public on this item? Ted, do we have any comments from the public?
I don't see anything at this time, Chair.
Okay. Then Ted, would you please do the roll?
Absolutely. Bergen County? Bergen County?
I'm not sure if Peter Pazzal is on the line, but yes, Joseph Baladi.
Essex?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Hunterdon?
Yes.
City of Jersey City?
Yes.
Middlesex?
Yes.
Monmouth?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
City of Newark?
Yes.
Ocean County
Yes.
is present in non-voting. Passaic?
Yes.
Somerset?
Yes.
Sussex?
Yes.
Union?
yes,
Warren?
Yes.
Governor's Office?
Yes.
NJDOT?
Yes.
New Jersey Transit? New Jersey Transit?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jeremy. Thank you. Port Authority
Okay, must be the
Yes.
headphones.
and Citizens Rep.
Yes.
The motion is approved.
Ted, just a
Thank you.
brief comment for Bergen County. I'm not voting member. Peter Pazzal should be on the line, but he might have difficulties. He's the county exec rep on the board.
Understood. Okay, we'll follow up. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
I'm back.
Second item, approval of a minor amendment to the fiscal years 2020 to 23 TIP to add the Manhattan Avenue retaining wall project in Hudson County. And I understand that perhaps Hudson County might like to move this.
Yes, Byron Nicholas, Hudson County will move this item.
Thank you. And do we have a second from Essex?
Essex seconds.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Any comments from members of the public on this item?
Not seeing anything at this time.
Thank you. Then, Ted, will you do the roll call?
Definitely. Bergen County,
Yes.
Essex,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Hunterdon,
Yes.
City of Jersey City,
Yes.
Middlesex,
Yes.
Monmouth,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
City of Newark,
Yes.
Passaic County,
Yes.
Somerset,
Yes.
Sussex,
Yes.
Union,
yes,
Warren,
Yes.
Governor's Office,
Yes.
NJDOT,
Yes.
New Jersey Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority,
Yes.
and Citizens Representative.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is approved.
So, I mean, especially coming into Manhattan,
Thank you.
by the time you get a lot of area.
Yeah, third item is the approval of a minor amendment to the fiscal years 2020 to 23. Again, the tip to add the Martin Luther King Avenue Bridge over the Whippany River project in Morris County. Do I have a motion from perhaps Warren County?
Warren County will make the motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Sussex County will second that.
Thank you. Any comments from the board members on this project? Any comments from members of the public on this item?
Not seeing anything at this time in the chat.
Thank you, Ted. Why don't we go forward then, and you can call the roll.
Okay, Bergen County, Bergen?
Again, yes, Joseph Bellotti for Peter.
Yeah, gotcha. Essex,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Hunterdon,
Yes.
City of Jersey City,
Yes.
Middlesex,
Yes.
Monmouth,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Yes.
Newark,
Yes.
Passaic,
Yes.
Somerset,
Yes.
Sussex,
Yes.
Union,
yes,
Warren,
Yes.
Governor's Office,
Yes.
NJDOT,
Yes.
New Jersey Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority, and Citizens Rep.
Yes.
Ted Bergen was a yes too.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Ted, do we have, we're done with that vote completely?
Yeah, the motion was approved. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go to the Planning and Economic Development. And I believe that Commissioner Sarah Sui, who is the vice chair, will give the report today. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, and thank you. On behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, I am pleased to report that at the April joint meeting, the committee heard a presentation by central staff on the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program. The NJTPA is partnering with Sustainable New Jersey, the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University, and Together North Jersey on this program, which assists municipalities in implementing complete street policies. Technical assistance includes walkable community workshops, bicycle corridor, or network plans demonstration, project guidance, conceptual renderings, and strategies for crime prevention through environmental design. This is the second year of the program, which promotes the NJTPA's long-range policy to improve walking and biking in our region. 9 towns participated in the first round, and 8 more were part of the second round, which just concluded. The technical assistance results in a report with recommendations tailored to each community. Recommended improvements are curb extensions, high visibility crosswalks on street sidewalks, bicycle lanes, lighting upgrades, and changes to signage or striping. A third round of assistance, which will be awarded on a competitive basis, is planned for this fall. You can read the reports and watch a video about complete streets on the NJTPA website. Also at the April joint meeting, staff briefed the committee on recent efforts by the Together North Jersey task forces to refresh the focus area, strategies, and action in the TNJ plan. Current TNJ programs include local technical assistance program with 2 projects, a downtown Dover business directory, and a post-COVID recovery project, and in Passaic County, a plan for art installation that will attract residents and visitors to the Morris Canal Greenway. Also, 2 transit hub programs improvement projects are in progress at the Fanwood and Hackensack train stations and adjacent areas. The Transit Hub program is undertaken in cooperation with the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Sui. And I apologize for those of you who've been paying attention. I skipped action item 4. So we are going to go back over to the approval of 4, which is approval of projects for the 2020 Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program. And I understand that perhaps the DOT wants to move this item.
Yes, so moved.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Yes, Terry O'Connor from Monmouth will second.
Thank you. Any comments from the board on this item?
Seeing none at this time, Chair.
And what about the public?
Nothing.
All right, thank you. So with that, Ted, you want to do the roll?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Bergen County? Essex?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Hunterdon?
Yes.
City of Jersey City?
Yes.
Middlesex?
Yes.
Monmouth?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
City of Newark?
Yes.
Passaic?
Yes.
Somerset?
Yes.
Sussex?
Yes.
Union?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
Governor's Office?
Yes.
NJDOT?
Yes.
New Jersey Transit?
Yes.
Port Authority?
Yes.
And Citizens Rep?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion's approved.
Thank you, and I apologize for that error. Now I'm going to call on Commissioner Charles Kenny, Chair of the Freight Initiative Committee, to give the committee report. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am pleased to report on the April meeting of the Freight Initiatives Committee, where we heard the annual rail freight updates from some of our regional partners. Our first guest speaker was Ryan Hill from Conrail, who briefed the committee on several capital projects implemented by this regional rail service, which serves the shared assets areas of CSX and Norfolk Southern, 2 national Class 1 railroads. Conrail's capital investment will ease congestion, through added capacity and flexibility. Next, Matt Masters of the Port Authority provided an overview of New York, New Jersey Rail, a short line marine railroad that operates via a rail car float barge service between Grenville Yard in Jersey City and the 65th Street Yard in Brooklyn. Matt said that Matt said that now that the services infrastructure has been built out to accommodate 2,400 carloads a year, 24,000 carloads a year, the rail line is working with the Port Business Development team to expand the customer base, promoting services for customers in Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, and Port Jersey. The final speaker was Genevieve Clifton from the NJDOT, who provided an update on the New Jersey Rail Freight Assistance Program, which provides $25 million a year to preserve, rehabilitate, and enhance rail freight infrastructure. She highlighted several of the 35 freight rail assistance programs projects awarded by the department, 3/4 of which will be implemented in the NJTPA region. 10 projects totaling $29 million have been selected for the 2021 program, and one of them, the Dover Rockaway Rail Realignment Project, is a graduate of the NJTPA Freight Concept Development Program. The application process for the 2022 Freight Rail Assistance Program will open in July. At the meeting, we also learned that in March, the port handled its highest ever number of cargo containers. We also heard that the industrial real estate development continues to be a hot market. NJDOT has finalized a statewide rail GIS database. Somerset County is working with the NJTPA Freight Concept Development Program on the Port Reading Secondary South Main Street Grade Crossing Elimination Project in Boundbrook, and Union County's truck mobility study is nearly complete. Finally, I'd like to note that the NJTPA has published its COVID-19 pandemic and North Jersey Freight Assessment Report, which is now available on the website. Madam Chair, that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next is our Planning for the 2050 presentation. Our guest speaker is John Carnegie, Executive Director of the Alan M. Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University, at the Edward Blonstein School of Planning and Public Policy. The NJTPA has worked closely with the Voorhees Center under John's direction on many projects, including our longstanding collaboration on Together North Jersey. Voorhees has also helped us on innovative research efforts that are bringing many new people and communities to the planning process we oversee. John and BTC have led many important projects to improve the economy and quality of life in our region. So we are excited to have him speak today. And with that, please welcome John Carnegie. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and to Mary Amin and the rest of the staff at NJTPA. Indeed, we've had a decades-long partnership with NJTPA on a variety of topics. I'm super happy to be here today to tell you a little bit about some new work that we're doing. And I think that work sort of has resonance for a number of reasons in terms of our current situation relative to emerging from COVID-19, as well as really the intersection of much of the work that NJTPA and you all pursue in terms of the long-range plans for North Jersey, as well as the planning that's being done in a number of places throughout the region and throughout the state. I thought that I would start really first with a kind of quick primer on all the work that the Voorhees Transportation Center does in terms of context. We certainly have had strong partnerships recently with NJTPA and the sub-regional representatives here on topics that are covered by Together North Jersey and in particular the Complete Streets work that we've done. But the Voorhees Transportation Center kind of portfolio of projects is pretty broad and encompassing. We have core expertise and sort of emerging knowledge on a number of different areas, including transportation systems planning and performance. In particular, transit service planning. We do quite a bit of work with New Jersey Transit and other transportation providers throughout the state on topics related to service planning and travel demand management, congestion management, things like that. We have had a fair amount of work in the past on topics related to transportation finance and sustainable funding for transportation, in particular public transit. Much of our work also focuses on the intersection between transportation and land use and the impact of the built environment on travel behavior, things like transit-oriented development, smart growth, community design, pedestrian and bicycle mobility and safety. We've done work nationally as well as in New Jersey on the topic of transportation resilience and the role of transportation in emergencies. We have we're one of the co-facilitators at the Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy of the Planning Healthy Communities Initiative, which looks quite often at the intersection of transportation and health and the central role that transportation plays as a social determinant of health outcomes. A lot of our work also intersects with equity and environmental justice. We have developed courses, done research and planning studies related to meeting the transportation needs of traditionally transportation disadvantaged communities and populations, as well as really how to integrate environmental justice in the transportation planning process. More recently, or I guess maybe a decade ago, we were involved in the intersection between transportation, energy, and climate change, and then went on a bit of hiatus, and then have more recently in the last 18 months since the Murphy administration has emphasized climate change, we've been involved in how to sort of reduce emissions and greenhouse gases in the transport sector. And then finally, we are actively involved right now in work on emerging transportation modes and big data analytics, and are developing expertise in both of those areas, and hope to make those a strong part of our portfolio moving forward. So when I had a conversation with Mary and Dave and Jeff about coming to give a talk, we talked about the depth and breadth of all the things that we're doing, and sort of seized upon this the idea of talking about a project that we launched a couple months ago, actually, in partnership with the New Jersey Climate Change Alliance. The Climate Change Alliance has, for those of you who are not familiar, has sort of kept the conversation about climate change, its impacts on New Jersey, and the mitigation of greenhouse gas emission issues, energy consumption issues in New Jersey for the better part of going on 2 decades now. They have a bunch of different existing working groups, and we're in the process late last year and early this year of standing up a new transportation work group. And Jean Herb, Margie Kaplan from the Climate Change Alliance, who are my colleagues at Rutgers, came to us and asked us if we could help them in that regard, and help the working group sort of develop a project or an initiative that would add value here in New Jersey to the discussion about how to reduce emissions from the transport sector. And they asked us to think about that in the context of, in particular, the important initiatives happening through the Murphy administration, but also the sort of changing policy dynamics nationally. In particular, the Energy Master Plan, the governor's initiatives related to environmental justice, and recently released climate change resilience strategy, which brought us to thinking about the incredible challenge that the emissions in the transport sector pose to New Jersey, and sort of taking stock in terms of what is happening already in the planning and policy arena, the infrastructure investment arena, et cetera, and what could the transportation working group do to add value? So the targets are enormous in terms of reducing emissions by 2050 by 80%. A large chunk of that has to do with the transportation sector. A full 41% of emissions in New Jersey are from the transportation sector. And Energy Master Plan, when it was released, sort of estimated that in order to achieve the climate targets that the state is setting, might imply the complete elimination of emissions from the transport sector. So a huge challenge, and something will take decades to achieve, but really kind of giving some thought to how the state's currently addressing that challenge and what kind of gaps the Climate Change Alliance might fill. So there's been a significant attention paid, I'm sure you guys have here at NJTPA as well, to vehicle electrification and making the investments that we need to in terms of expanding and deploying charging infrastructure, the investments we need to encourage people to uptake electric vehicles. And the Murphy administration has done a significant amount of work in that regard in the last couple of years. The BPU has approved the first utility-driven program to build out EV infrastructure with utility providers, PSE&G, Atlantic City Electric, and others announcing programs to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in that regard. And the Murphy administration is also advancing the use of the multi-state Volkswagen settlement, the monies that the state received from that, as well as the RGGI initiative monies that are coming into the state to also invest in electric vehicle infrastructure and various rebate and tax credit programs and things like that. Also allowed EVs to use HOV lanes. So there's a lot going on in that sector, thinking through what infrastructure is needed to promote the use and uptake of electric vehicles. And we didn't think we could really add too much to that discussion and advance that aspect of decarbonizing the transport sector. But we knew that there probably is more to it. There will have to be more to it than just promoting electric vehicles. And I sort of throw this graphic into the presentation. It's something I think is interesting and illustrative. This graphic is from the Institute for Sustainable Transport in Australia, but I think it really illustrates an interesting point that the use of EVs in terms of greenhouse gas emissions is sensitive to the mix of electric grid power sources. New Jersey pretty well positioned, but there are still emissions from electric vehicles based on how electricity is generated. And also the footprint of what's needed, even if we transitioned 100% of the vehicle fleet in New Jersey to electric vehicles, the footprint of that in terms of infrastructure for parking and roads and et cetera, is still quite large. So we thought that perhaps stepping back and thinking about the challenge as not just how do we eliminate or reduce emissions from the transport sector, but really how do we bring about carbon neutral mobility, led us to this idea of thinking about the challenge in terms of emissions from a multi-goal framework. What could we achieve and where are there synergies if we were pursuing healthy, just, efficient, resilient, and carbon neutral mobility, kind of all at the same time. So could we improve health outcomes for people and communities by improving air quality and making it easier and safer to walk and bike? Certainly, EVs can help in that regard, but much more is needed in terms of the built environment and the investments that we need to do to bring about easy and safe walking. Can we promote equity by making travel by transit more reliable, convenient, by enhancing access to opportunity to marginalized groups? Can we increase transportation system efficiency and effectiveness by integrating kind of advanced and emerging transportation technology and modes in New Jersey in a more effective way? Can we make transportation more resilient by enhancing systems and adapting infrastructure to climate hazards? And then finally, can all of those things be advanced while also reducing energy use and emissions of all kinds in terms of the transport sector? And ultimately, I think the project that we've derived, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it, I think actually carbon neutral mobility means all of those things, and we certainly can put in place a framework that helps us to address all of those goals and achieve a carbon neutral future for transportation while also achieving these other goals. So that brought us to this project, and how do we move the state towards a healthier, more equitable and cleaner transport future? And I'm going to sort of break down each of those components of healthy, just, resilient, carbon neutral, and tell you a little bit about what we've figured out in terms of research ongoing and leading practices across jurisdictions in the US and the world relative to each of those things separately. So what is it that we mean by healthy mobility? Certainly healthy mobility means, and we certainly know that transportation affects our lives in many, many ways every day. Transportation largely determines what we have access to and what we don't have access to. So access is an important component of transportation. Actually, access is critically important to individual and community health, because access to well-paying jobs and fresh food and needed services, and educational opportunities, parks, other amenities shapes health outcomes for all of us. And it's not just access to healthcare. Transportation is one of the largest components of all of those things I just mentioned, and each of those things is a social determinant of health that really affects mortality and disease and things like that across all populations. Healthy mobility also involves safety, something critically important to DOT and NJTPA, I know, in terms of your programs. Safety is not just an economic consideration, it certainly is a health consideration. And among unintentional injury deaths consistently in the US and around the world, injuries from car crashes are usually the first or second leading cause of death in all age groups. So very important to health and our communities. Depending on the characteristics and options available, transportation can also significantly encourage physical activity. And we know that, for instance, people that take transit walk more and have better health outcomes. That's been demonstrated through research in New Jersey as well as elsewhere. So things like being able to walk to safe, have an easy and safe walk to transit stops, or having a protected bike lane, encourage physical activity, which has long-term health outcomes that are positive. Transportation is certainly a major source of emissions that causes air pollution, and air pollution is a major cause of heart and lung disease, including cancer, asthma, bronchitis, and others. And finally, transportation has the noise from transportation, particularly highways and airports, can really negatively affect our lives in many ways, including affecting our sleep and hearing quality, stress levels, energy levels, things like that. So there's a lot of research out there that connects transportation and health, and what we think we're evolving into is a framework that will help us to achieve healthy mobility while we're also achieving carbon neutral mobility. The second piece of our long name for our project has to do with just mobility and what it means to have equitable and just mobility. And the sort of consensus in the world of environmental justice and equity advocacy is that mobility really is the freedom of movement and the ease with which people can get where they need to go. Access to mobility options needs to be fair and just, providing everyone with choice in how they travel. An equitable and just transportation system provides safe and clean transportation options that are affordable, convenient, and easy to use. And equitable mobility provides really the same, should provide the same opportunity for everyone to move around reliably and sustainably in ways that meet their needs. So equity in transportation and an equitable mobility system includes lots of options, and options that are safe, affordable, convenient, and easy to use. And as you'll see, and as you can imagine, being able to walk and bike safely, being able to take public transportation, having access to shared use mobility options, things like that, really are important considerations as well to bringing about carbon neutral mobility. The resilient part of mobility, this one is a little harder to grasp, because I think we often think about resilience in transportation in terms of the impacts of climate on infrastructure itself, and that certainly is part of it, an important part of it. But in terms of resilient mobility, systems need to be robust. They need to be well conceived and constructed and managed in order to withstand those impacts from hazard events, kind of that traditional thinking about how infrastructure is prepared to respond to climate hazards, weather hazards without significant damage or loss of function, that kind of thing. But it also includes redundancy. Systems should have spare or latent capacity that's purposefully created within those systems so that they can accommodate disruption and extreme pressure and surges in demand and things like that when they do occur. So diversity in systems helps to contribute to that redundancy. Again, multiple modes, having travel options and alternative routes that fulfill whatever given function needs to be undertaken. And we saw, I think, this quite vividly in the pandemic, where it was critically important for all of us to have multiple ways of getting somewhere. If like we thought for some period of time, public transportation was potentially an opportunity to spread the disease. Turns out research has indicated that has largely not been public transportation has largely not been the spreader of the disease, but so that we can meet our needs by perhaps walking and biking to the places we need to go, or having other options. So that redundancy in the systems is really important. Systems should be flexible in order to sort of change, evolve, and adapt to changing circumstances, either emergent circumstances or the evolution of circumstances. Resilient mobility also really relies on having responsive infrastructure systems. I know intelligent transportation systems and the technology in transportation operations and management are very important to DOT and NJTPA and other transportation providers. But making sure that our systems incorporate the kind of monitoring and data we need to get feedback in the short term, and have the ability to kind of understand how systems are performing in real time and modifying operations and emerging conditions. And then finally, resilient mobility requires coordination between systems. Coordination between power ensuring that our signals have redundant power sources, perhaps during times when power is out, or making sure that other interdependencies are accounted for as we're planning and maintaining and operating our systems. And then certainly also consistency in decision-making and management of those systems so that they're all mutually supportive and we're making decisions that are moving us toward a shared outcome. So lots of research in all of these areas, and we're presently in the process of thinking through, how all of these important goals of future mobility system kind of relate together. And I'll tell you in a minute about how we're kind of exploring that in terms of the geography of New Jersey's landscapes. And then finally, carbon neutral mobility, which really means that we are being smart about the combinations that bring about combinations of a wide range of different types of measures, investments, things like that include everything from energy efficient vehicles and electric transport, like I was describing before, but also really thinking about the best deployment of shared use travel options, affordable, convenient, and efficient public transportation. Maybe we need to do some rethinking of how we provide public transport. New Jersey Transit's working on that in Newark and in Camden, will be in other places as well. We need to have safe walking and biking environments and sustainable power generation. So achieving carbon neutral mobility requires us really to have smart combinations of all of these things so that we can reduce vehicle miles traveled by private autos, especially those powered by gas and diesel. And we can increase the share of trips taken by non-auto modes. So these are long-term kind of goals that we have that are sort of taking on increased significance in the context of bringing about carbon neutrality in the transport sector and carbon neutral mobility. So all of that kind of learning and thinking led us to a set of guiding concepts that are really the foundation for the project that we're undertaking right now. If the objective is to decarbonize the transportation sector, then we need to support a transition to low and no emissions vehicle use, that's for sure, including all types of vehicles, whether that be public or private, light, medium, and heavy duty vehicles, or public transit vehicles, or carbon neutral or decarbonized maritime and aviation sectors. But we also need to do other things that help to empower people to drive less by making it easier and safer to walk and bike. We need to plan for lots of connections within and between neighborhoods, communities, within the regional structure. Active transportation is a low-cost way to improve people's physical and mental health, as well as to reduce vehicle miles traveled, noise, and air pollution. So walking and biking, a win across a lot of these multifaceted goal structures. We need to create a diverse and inclusive network of neighborhoods by encouraging neighborhoods that are mixed in terms of housing types and affordability. I know that the topic of accessory dwelling units has resonance in all parts of New Jersey right now. We also need to ensure that our land uses are built at densities where appropriate to sort of cost effectively support shared modes and public transit. We need to think harder about how mobility as a service and that concept of kind of moving away from providing individual transportation services to thinking about mobility and it being in and of itself a service, and reimagining how public transportation worked with a focus more on customer needs and the needs of individual trips, and giving people convenient, affordable, and efficient travel options. We certainly need to embrace new technologies, but we need to ensure that they're affordable and accessible to everyone. That means really deliberate planning and investment in infrastructure and providing incentives that are needed to bring about an electric, shared, and eventually autonomous vehicle future, but doing it in a way that is, as I said, deliberate and intentional relative to making sure that all of us have access to those things and not just those that can afford them. And then finally, we think it's really important to make social justice a key indicator of transportation performance, not just a consideration of whether or not we're complying with environmental justice requirements, but really to elevate social justice as a really important performance measure for the future, so that we're connecting people with opportunity, we're eliminating transportation-related health impacts, environmental impacts to marginalized communities all at the same time. So that sort of framework of guiding concepts for our projects led us to thinking about how do we organize that work to understand what the best ways are to achieve those multiple goals given New Jersey's landscape. And in order to kind of operationalize those concepts and really ground truth them to the geography of New Jersey, we're using this idea of a 15-minute city or a 15-minute neighborhood as the kind of possible organizing framework to explore what it might take to achieve the vision of a healthy, just, resilient, and carbon neutral mobility in the state. And there are sort of growing number of examples. This concept has had significant attention in the post-pandemic or emerging post-pandemic world, given the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on people's lives and how we travel and things like that. And there are an increasing number of examples around the world, including Singapore, Paris, Portland in the United States, Melbourne, Ottawa, Barcelona, where communities have been using this concept as a way to kind of frame up their planning. And in fact, Hudson County, I know, I think late last month and moving into this month and perhaps into June, is sponsoring a webinar series to think about how the 15-minute city or 15-minute neighborhood concept applies to Hudson County and how it can help us sort of build our communities back better after the pandemic. So what is this idea of a 15-minute city or neighborhood? What do we really mean by that? And it seems like from the research and the examples that we've explored, including all of those international studies that are international examples that I just mentioned, the definitions are different depending on the locations. They're all fundamentally the same, but seemingly flexible. And the flexibility derives from the mix of transportation modes that you include in this kind of conceptual framework. With the graphic here that I'm showing on the screen, prepared by Andreas Dewani and Robert Stewartville from the Congress of New Urbanism, kind of shows that flexibility. So you could think about a 5-minute walk, you could think about a 15-minute walk, you could think about a 5-minute bike ride or a 15-minute bike ride. You could even think about a 15-minute transit ride between different neighborhoods or a 15-minute car ride. But really, the basic definition is that a 15-minute geography should be able to allow us to meet most of our human needs and many of our desires within that 15-minute travel distance. So that's kind of the basic definition of what a 15-minute city or neighborhood is. And we're using that concept to explore the relationships between and look at the geography of people and places and the connections between people and places in different parts of the state to see what kind of patterns emerge, to think about what the reality was during the pandemic, but also to think about the future in terms of bringing about a carbon neutral mobility pattern. So we're using that concept also sort of flexibly at different scales to help us think about or rethink the relationships between neighborhoods, how neighborhoods come together to form communities, and then how communities relate to one another in a larger regional context. So really, if you think about a 15-minute neighborhood being a building block, multiple neighborhoods come together, and there are connections between them. And then those multiple, they form a community, and then communities come together in a region to play different functions. They have different forms. But if we think about this, the overall concept of 15 minutes to get places, either at the neighborhood scale or 15 minutes to get between places at the regional scale, can that help us imagine what the policy interventions that we need to make are and what the infrastructure investments we need to make are in New Jersey to kind of bring about an environment where people can walk and bike more, they can drive less, they can use public transportation in ways that they perhaps can't currently based on the existing connections and that sort of thing. So we're doing that in our first phase of work is looking at case study locations throughout the state, 4 of which happen to be in NJTPA regions. So we're looking at we did our first phase of work was doing some desktop analysis, data collection analysis, et cetera, of patterns in Essex, Hudson, Middlesex, and Warren counties. And all of these places, including those outside the NJTPA region, were all selected in consultation with the Transportation Work Group at the Climate Alliance. And they were all selected to hopefully give us a good selection of places that have different issues, different transportation contexts, different economic development contexts, different densities, different land uses, different equity issues, different patterns of marginalized populations, that sort of thing. So each of these case studies are kind of the starting point for our analyses. And our phase one work is looking at what the leading practices are in terms of those things that I've described for you already, in terms of the overall vision. We've collected and are finishing some analysis and mapping of the patterns of people, place, and connections in each of the counties. We're in the process of identifying potential equity partners with this idea that social justice should be a key performance metric for this kind of new vision of carbon neutral mobility in New Jersey. And I'll tell you in a minute or so, we're also be convening a thought leaders issue forum in the sort of late June, early July timeframe. All of that will be foundational for phase 2 and phase 3 of our work, which will kind of extend throughout the rest of this year, maybe a little bit into next year, where we'll be conducting field work and community engagement over the summer, early fall, and then coming up with concept plans for at least 3, hopefully 6 neighborhood scale investigations to look at all of the things that I've described so far at the neighborhood level, with a particular focus on better connecting low-income areas, census blocks, neighborhoods, with opportunities through a variety of modes, and improving the pedestrian and bicycle environment in those communities, and improving connections between those communities where other opportunities exist elsewhere in the region. So that's going to be sort of a multi-scale look at how we can bring about a more healthy, just, and resilient and carbon neutral mobility pattern in the future. So next steps for the project include continuing to complete and finalize a concept paper that will describe the kind of current state of practice related to planning for healthy, just, resilient, and carbon neutral mobility. We'll be completing our phase 1 analyses that I just described, and preparing some existing condition reports for those 8 counties. And those documents will be used as a foundation for the first issues forum, which will include thought leaders from around the state, including local officials, county and municipal officials, and potential equity partners from each of the case study counties. The forums, we plan to organize the forum kind of similar to a visioning workshop. We'll probably have a plenary section where we're exploring some of the ideas that I just described in more detail with some speakers, and then we'll have breakout sessions where we give the participants an opportunity to explore the various components of the multi-goal framework that I've presented today, along with the guiding concepts. And participants will be asked then to help us to identify within that framework needs and concerns in specific places, what the desired long-term outcomes are from a community perspective, what the performance measures should be, including measures related to social justice, and what the potential obstacles and impediments are to achieving that vision of a healthy, just, resilient, carbon neutral mobility in the state. We're currently planning the forum, like I said, for end of June or early July. We'll certainly make sure to invite all of the members of the board and their staff to attend. And we'll certainly also look forward to coming back perhaps end of this year or early next year to tell you a bit about and share some of the results and the recommendations that we come up with from this project. But I think there's a significant convergence of the things that we're exploring through this project and the work that NJTPA does every day, as well as the work of what's important in your long-range transportation plan, as well as the plans of many other state agencies, including New Jersey Transit and DOT. So I look forward to kind of working with all of you and sharing the results in hopefully and not too far from now. But I thank you very much for your time. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that might arise or just hear your observations and comments about what I presented.
Does the board have any questions that they'd like to present to Mr. Carnegie?
This is Jason Sarnosky from Warren County. I just want to thank John for the presentation and also say that I'd be very interested to see the results of Warren County's study when you're completed. So looking forward to getting together.
Great. Look forward to speaking with you.
John, that was very informative. So much there to take in, but very informative. And we look forward to hearing more as the year progresses and you have more information to share with us. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending your morning with the NJTPA today to share so much information. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this point, and of course just lost my page. Let's see. I think at this point we are available for the public to speak.
Yep.
So public participation. Melissa, do we have anybody in the chat that you've been monitoring with questions?
Yeah, we had a couple people sign up in advance. The first is Tara Mezzanotti.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, executive staff. My name is Tara Mezzanotti. I am joining you from Knowlton Township in Warren County, and I'm here representing, again, the I-80 DWG Coalition. We are not contesting that rockfall mitigation may be required in the Delaware Water Gap area of I-80. We're contesting that the proposed plans are rational, effective, or considerate of the harms that will result to our local citizens and the environment. These concerns have led us to fight the current project and investigate the source of its many issues. You've been making funding decisions since 2012 on this project. It is very uncomfortable for me to be the one here today to bring to your attention that these decisions may have been made under false pretense. If I am correct, we have all been presented with a project that did not follow capital program development procedures as outlined in the 2012 DOT policy manual. We've come to this conclusion having reviewed thousands of pages of documents, audio, and video obtained via FOIA and Oprah. I'm here today to ask you to please find the facts and truth. At issue is over $150 million of rockfall mitigation money in Warren and Hunterdon counties alone that you have authorized. This money is not earmarked by the federal government for rockfall projects. The DOT chooses what projects gets this money. It can be spent on other neglected and delayed safety projects in any of your counties. We've concluded that the public outrage may be the direct results of these violations of DOT policies and procedures that are specifically designed to ensure project feasibility, responsible spending, and public engagement. At issue is the fact that the project scope changed between the completion of the 2011 concept development phase and the 2013 preliminary engineering phase. The minor $5 million, 9-month, no traffic impact project presented to Knowlton in 2011 morphed behind closed doors into the current $37 to $200 million project that's now 4.5 years, huge traffic and visual impact concerns, that really puts the feasibility in question. Knowlton Township was removed from the public engagement plan that was approved in 2011. We're asking your assistance to seek out an audit and an investigation as outlined in the packet sent to you on Friday. Everyone deserves to know why the scope changed, who approved it, and if, in fact, it violated DOT policy. And we're asking you to help the DOT facilitate a formal public meeting as outlined in the current public involvement action plan, which states public meetings are held on MPO tips. For controversial projects, public meetings are an essential intermediary step before conducting public hearings. I thank you very much for your consideration and your assistance. I do very much look forward to moving past this and finding resolutions to the many issues and moving mitigation into something more appealing and appropriate for our area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara. Just to the board, all of the information was shared with our board members Friday afternoon. We didn't share the expectation they'd read all of it over the weekend, knowing it's a holiday weekend. But I am confident that the majority of our board members will be reviewing your package of material. Thank you for your comments today.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public, Melissa, that has requested to speak that you have before we open it up to those on the phone?
Yeah, we have 3 more people. The next on the list is Mayor Adele Stars from Knowlton Township.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adele Stars, Mayor of Knowlton. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the last time that I spoke before this board, I was with about a half dozen other mayors, and we were drawing your attention to the fact that this project in Knowlton Township, sponsored by the DOT to alleviate rockfall or alleged rockfall, really was exploding in funds. And at that time, the majority of the NJTPA members declined to vote the project out of the TIP, but they did promise to get involved and to ensure that the NJDOT would sit down at the table with the affected townships and allow us to have a productive discussion and possible mitigation of the project. So I'm here today to ask the NJTPA's assistance and to inform you of 2 developments. First, nothing promised at the last meeting actually happened. We've repeatedly asked for a sit-down meeting with the NJDOT in which they treat us like a legitimate stakeholder and take our concerns into account. None of that has happened. In fact, the opposite. And the project has not changed in any substantive way. It is not 1 inch shorter, 1 inch less wide. It has not changed in any way, shape, or substantive form, despite the fact that there are 14 design alternatives available. The second thing I'd like to bring to your attention is that there's possible wrongdoing. The project has been selected to undergo an environmental assessment. And normally at the end of that study, a report is issued with the conclusion that the project will either have significant environmental impacts or it won't. The NJDOT in March of 2019 instructed their contractor who is overseeing the assessment, Dewberry Engineers, to plan for a finding of no significant impact on the project. We have that in documentation, and it shows that the NJDOT already decided and informed their contractor 2 years before the report has even come out, and it hasn't been released yet, 2 years before any public comment, that they already knew what the outcome of what the study would be. So the fact that they've predetermined the outcome shows that public input is a total farce, and the millions of dollars of money that have been spent on that study are wasted taxpayer dollars. Ms. Mezzanotte just brought to your attention another area of possible wrongdoing. And I bring this to you today because the NJTPA is tasked with funding and oversight of these projects. So I've come to ask for your help. The NJDOT has not followed through on their assurances given at this meeting 2 years ago. And more concerning, we now have documentation of violations, substantive ones, on this project. Now, it's one thing when a government agency funds a project and is not aware of any wrongdoing. But in this case, I am now making the NJTPA aware. I will forward all the documentation I have at the end of this meeting. So I have 3 questions I would just like the NJTPA to address today. One is, what role does the NJTPA see itself playing with the new information that has now been brought to light regarding possible wrongdoing? Number 2, the representative from Warren County has asked that this project go back to the drawing board, not to cancel it, but to resolve some of the issues. Does the board support that proposal? And number 3, is the NJTPA able to provide any oversight of this project, or if not provide oversight, to act as an intermediary, ensuring that Knowlton and Hardwick townships can be treated more like stakeholders in this process? I thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you in any way I can.
Thank you for your comments. You may be aware that we at the NJTPA are trying to coordinate a meeting with the DOT with Warren County to address your issues. We at the NJTPA, we don't, it's not our place. We work with the money that comes in, the federal and state funding, and move the projects as they are approved. Some of the things you're saying, whether, you know, I don't want to comment on them. It really is necessary that this conversation take place between Warren County and the DOT, and we're trying to coordinate that for everyone. So more to come on that. I know our executive, Mary Amin, has been aggressively working on this. Mary, is there anything more you'd like to add to this comment?
Let me get myself back unmuted. Just that the role of the NJTPA, I think, has been and continues to be one of facilitation, and we will continue to do that. We are not by law an investigative body, so I think that project development issues, it's proper and it's right that they're brought before the forum that the NJTPA has established. However, resolving those issues is really something that needs to take place with within the purview of the project sponsor, which in this case is the NJDOT, who is also a board member. So, thank you.
The next speaker we have is Mayor Kevin Duffy from Hardwick Township.
Thank you.
And well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to the board. I guess my question is not my question, my issue, given the numerous procedural issues and questions that are out there that have been presented by Ms. Mezzanotte and Mayor Stars, I also like to add to that is how is it possible for this project to continue to move forward when every elected municipal official representing the impacted areas in New Jersey and Pennsylvania have expressed concerns about the project or outright opposed it? The boards of commissioners from both Warren and Hunterdon counties have expressed concerns about it. 20 local municipalities have passed resolutions opposing it or questioning it. Both members of the U.S. House of Representatives from New Jersey and Pennsylvania have raised concerns. Senator Oraho and Assemblyman Space and Wirtz, and Pennsylvania State Senator Scavella, Assemblywomen Emmerich and Brown have expressed concerns, and U.S. senators from both New Jersey and Pennsylvania have expressed concerns. So it's kind of, I'm just wondering, how is it possible virtually every elected official in the impacted areas have not been able to get this any kind of I'm going to say slowing down or just another review of where we are, and given some of the issues that have been raised procedurally, et cetera, just what needs to happen for this to get someone to take a look at it and listen to the elected officials who've expressed such concerns for a number of years now, with very little response back from NJDOT. And that's thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to raise these issues.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. Melissa, you said there are a few more people that would like to make comments?
Yeah, the last person who indicated they'd like to speak is Neil Weissman. And then if there's anyone else, feel free to put a comment in the comment box, or we'll open it up after that. But Neil's the last one on my list.
Hi.
Yep.
First, my thanks to John Carnegie for his presentation. I mean, as a cycling advocate, I have to support that. And the breadth with which he laid it out. In the comments in the chat box, I've uploaded 3 links. One is to a screen capture of the New York Cycle Club Facebook posts with 25 remarks complaining about the uptick of motorized vehicles using the GWB path. This is an ADA compliant facility that is being used by motorized vehicles. This is many hundreds of users an hour during peak use. And, this is scary. Last month, the New York City announced a 3,000 unit scooter share program in the Bronx, which is directly across from the GWB. So this is, this is the beginning. It is not unreasonable to project that with the onset of congestion pricing in Lower Manhattan, that many New Jersey residents will adopt e-bikes as a solution for daily commutes, and the GWB is the only link. But this is not unique to the George Washington Bridge by any means. I think cycling facilities across New York City are increasingly stressed by motorized micro-mobility devices. But that points up the importance for high-use arterial bikeways to be compliant with national standards with plenty of headway for increased use. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And then,
Thank you, Mr. Weissman.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Sarnoski has asked if he could also make a comment. Commissioner?
Thank you very much. I'm not going to repeat what some of our mayors have said or Tara, but I do want to start by thanking Commissioner DiFilippo, who has been engaging and open and taken every call I've sent her and been very welcoming with my comments with regards to the TIP and especially the Route 80 rockfall, and very supportive. And I'm hoping that support continues as she's shown. We've submitted multiple comments regarding the projects within the TIP for Warren County. Of particular concern and significance are the Route 57 519 project, intersection project, and the Route 80 rockfall project, of which I've been a vocal opponent of where they've been in the process for quite some time now. Multiple counties at this point, specifically with the Route 80 project, have now expressed concern with rockfall projects, including Sussex County, and Hunterdon County with its own Route 29 and Route 78 projects. I think it's really behooving on us as a board to really look at these closely and not just dismiss as this is a sponsoring agency issue. But to really look at these projects closely and to see if we've really followed what we need to do and done our due diligence with regards to these projects. I do look forward to a very impactful and meaningful meeting with the DOT with regards to this. I am hopeful that does happen. But barring that, I still see concerns going forward, but I want to thank the chair for everything she's done up to this point and continue to work with her on trying to resolve this in the right manner, which in Warren County we've been doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Sarnoski. as you know, we will continue to advocate that both parties, Warren County and the DOT, take a serious look at the projects and the things that you have commented on. And we just want to be able to facilitate that for your county. And we hope to have a date set soon. Thank you.
Chairwoman, this is Zach Rich. Can I make a comment real quick? Real
I'm
quick.
sorry, absolutely. I was muted there for a moment.
I know I'm fairly new to the party here, but every voting member on this call, we really don't ask for a whole lot out in Hunter and Warren. And I can tell you that this is that important. We really want to sit down with NJDOT and work this out and come to a positive resolution. And I do feel like NJTPA, this body does have a say in the process. Money flows through it to me, and we're here to make sure that everything's that we do a good job and that things are done right. And I ask everybody to support us on this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Melissa, I seem to recall that was the end of those that have listed. Do you want to open up for the general public who may be on the telephone?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know if anyone on the phone, we only have a few callers, a few of which are board members, but I don't know if there's anyone else who'd like to make public comment. There's nobody else who's indicated in the chat.
I'll just repeat it again. We'll give you a couple seconds here if anybody'd like any additional comments. Hearing none, we'll close the public participation. I generally appreciate the comments that have been said today, both for bicycle riding and also for the rock ball. I can't repeat enough that we really just hope to facilitate so that there can be a more in-depth conversation between the DOT and the parties of concern. And hopefully we'll have that date scheduled in the near future. So again, thank you for everyone's participation. And at this point, I want to remind people that our next meeting, which is still scheduled to be virtual, will be, next board meeting will be on Monday, July 12th at 10:30. And you'll be getting the information to log on for that virtual meeting like we've been doing in the past. And like everyone else, we're going slowly. We're following the rules. And I have to say the staff has done remarkably well being virtual and working from home and getting so many of these projects accomplished. I really do encourage our board members to look at the staff highlights. They're very informative. There's links to go to dive a little deeper as well. And you just find the breadth of information that our staff is constantly working on. Having said that, I want to thank everyone for their participation today. We had well over 90 people at one point. That I thought I saw, we were up in the 90s, so we're pretty consistent with the amount of people who are participating. And I want to thank everyone for their participation today, and we'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Charlie Kenny, Middlesex, motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Boy, I went blank. I almost said Freeholder. And I'm sorry, who was the second?
Passaic seconds. And we're all still calling ourselves freeholder half the time.
We're trying. It's a couple months into this, and we still get confused with the title. Well, with that, all in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you again for everybody's participation, and we'll see you at our committee meeting next month and our board meeting in July. Thank you.
Thank you.